So here, not a direct section from the book, it's kind of a little bit of a sidestep from what we've been doing. So these are our notes. Make sure you write this down. You're going to want to refer back to this later today while you're working on your assignment. The key with this is that you're given a system of equations. So just like the ones that we just did. And you're given the answer, but the answer is a jumbled mess. Everything's out of order. Your job is to figure out what the correct order is. So, I don't know, if it was me and I had to do this problem, I wouldn't take the puzzle pieces first. I would hold off on these guys. I would look back at the question and I'd solve it, just like I normally would, as if nobody told me what the answer was. Then, nice and organized, don't skip steps. So I would write out the entire problem here. Then I'd go back and try to figure out, well, part F was way up at the top, or part F was way down at the bottom. So my recommendation to you is to take this system of equations and solve it. So why don't we do that first? So solve that system of equations. Don't skip any steps, okay, folks? And it's just like what we just did on the warm-up, just like it. So now that I have it worked out with every single step shown, now I would try to figure out what the order is. So if I take a look back, it looks like A is 9x minus equals 18. So I'm going to look through my work, and I'm going to find that step in my work, 9x equals 18. And it looks like it's right here. So I would go over to where I have 9x equals 18, and I would just put an A off to the side, because that's the placement for step A. Okay, let's find B. So B is y equals 3x minus 8. And that looks like it was actually below A. So find that step and let's put a B next to it. So I'm just trying to take my puzzle pieces now and identify their location within my work. Okay, C, y is equal to -2. Okay, so find that location and identify it. D, 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 8. Actually, I think D was the first step. So go back up and identify that D is actually the first step. A, B, C, D. Okay, let's go to E, x equals 2. So now I'm just going to keep going until I end up exhausting all of the things in the list. F is 9x minus 16 equals 2. Okay, so that looks like it's actually up higher. G, 3 times 2 minus 8. Okay, so that's lower. So there's G. H. Okay, H I should know for sure is absolutely the last one, because that's the solution. And I wouldn't say that before actually going through and solving everything. Okay, I looks like it's pretty close to the top. So I's up here. J, 6, okay, that's close to the bottom. So if I was asked to identify what is the correct order, this is what I would say. I would say the order for this is D, I, F, A, E, B, G, J, C, H. That's the correct order for those steps. So I have all the steps. I know what they are, but it's just given to me as kind of a mess. My job is to organize it. There's only one other thing that I want to go over with on these notes. And this is the last set of notes that we're going to be doing before your test. Your test is next week. So what we have today is a little bit of a review, because that's kind of where we're at. And then next class period is going to be review and pretest. And then the following class period is going to be our test. All right, so let's take a look at this. We want to be able to rewrite as y equals. Okay, well, the reason behind this, there's a couple reasons, but the big one is if I wanted to graph it, because right now, the way that these equations are set up, I have no idea what the slope is at all, and I have no idea what the starting value is. But if I rewrote it as y equals, I think I could find both of those things, which means I think I could actually graph this. So really the main purpose of this at this point, and maybe it'll change in the future, so the main purpose is to graph. We want to be able to write it as y equals mx plus b. That's really the point here. Now that may change in the future, but for now, this is the reason. All right, so let's take a look at the first one here. I want to get y all by itself, which means everybody on the same side of the equal sign with y's got to go. Now, typically, we get rid of addition and subtraction first. Well, the addition and the subtraction in this case, and in most cases like this, is the thing that has the x on it. So we're going to move that 5x. Well, it's positive right now, so let's go ahead and subtract it. So I'm going to subtract 5x from each side. I am not going to put the 5x underneath the 6 because I cannot put them together. I don't want to visually mislead myself into thinking that I can. Okay, drop the negative 2y down. Now the positive 5x minus 5x, that becomes 0. We could put plus 0, but it's not necessary. Now on the right-hand side, I'm going to drop down the 6, and I'm going to drop down the minus 5x. Okay, we got rid of the addition and subtraction. Now let's get rid of the multiplication part. So I got to get rid of that negative 2. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. But when you divide, you have to make sure that you divide everybody. You have to divide the 6, and you have to divide the negative 5x. Everybody gets divided. So when I divide, okay, let's get it to catch up with me. Everything by negative 2. All of it. All right. I know that negative 2 divided by negative 2 is going to be a 1. So I get a 1y. Then I'm going to do 6 divided by negative 2. Well, that's negative 3. Now, I don't know how many times 2 goes into 5, and it's not evenly, so I'm just going to leave it. But I do know that a negative divided by negative is a positive. So I'm going to turn this into plus 5 over 2x. That's my equation. And just by inspection, I can take a look at it, and I know exactly what the slope is. So remember, the slope is the coefficient on the x. So in this case, my slope is 5/2. But I can also say what my y-intercept is. Well, remember, it comes from the starting value. So my starting value is negative 3. Which means my y-intercept is 0, negative 3. Now that I've rewritten it, I can actually graph this now. I know that this thing is going to start at negative 3 on the y-axis, and I know that it's going to have a slope of up 5, right 2. Whereas in the original form of the equation, I didn't know either of those things, but now I do. So I'd like you to work on the second one. So go ahead and rewrite that one as y equals. Same process as the one we just did. Okay, so on this problem, same process. Let's move the 8x to the other side. We're trying to get the y by itself. I am not going to stack up the 15 and the 8x. For me, that's a visual cue that I get to actually put them together, and I don't want to do that. Drop the negative 3y down. drop down the 15, and drop down the minus 8x. Then we got to get rid of that negative 3. Everybody gets divided by negative 3. Everybody. I know that negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1, so that's 1y. And then 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. And I don't know how many times, well, 3 doesn't go into 8 evenly, so I don't want to change that, and it can't be simplified, except the negative signs can be dealt with. I know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and I get y is equal to negative 5 plus 8/3 x. From here, I still have that information that I didn't have to begin with. I now know that slope is 8/3. I also know that the starting value is negative 5. So I could graph it, whereas I couldn't previously. Well, not using the slope and the y-intercept. I'm sure I could have done it a different way. So there we have it, now in graphing form.